If you master drop CG, then you can make wonderful sounds like this. Hey everybody, it's Matthew. Welcome back to the Magic of. We're back today to learn another fantastic tuning. This little one is called Drop CG, and this is a tuning I picked up from Soundgarden, of course. And it's pretty basic. All you're doing is you're drop tuning the two thickest strings, and you get these notes when you do this. So you have on your thickest string here, this is tuned to a C. And then the next string here, normally your A string is going to be tuned down to a G. And then for the rest is standard tuning, so you have D here, G again, and then B, and then E. And the way this tuning works is you're basically dropping the two lowest strings. So in order to drop tune here, we drop tune the G so that it's dropped to the your normal D string here. So you get your open power chord here. And then to continue that further so that we can have the top string here, the thickest string, drop tuned to this G string, we have to tune this all the way down to a C, and we get this open power chord. It's not too crazy of a tuning. It does sound a bit weird because you're starting with a C and then a G, but after that it's your normal standard tuning. And there's only a handful of Soundgarden songs that actually use this. There's only 3 in fact that use this tuning, but it is one of my favorites. It might be my favorite tuning, honestly, because there's a lot of versatility. You can get some really cool low notes and some really interesting open string chordal things. And without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. So the first thing that makes this pretty fantastic is your usual position up here. Well, you can access the entire C scale in this one position without having to hardly move your hand, and I will show you that right now because we're going to be talking about this in respect to C minor because this tuning sounds really great in minor. And of course you have C, your second fret is the D, and then your minor third at a D sharp, and then your fourth here is the F. And then open G is our fifth. Minor 6 is this G sharp. And then this A sharp note. And then we're back to C. And what's of course very fun with that is doing that with your power chords. And of course, just keeping this in the same shape, you get a lot of chords there, and you can go pretty quick in between them. So there's the first thing there. It's kind of like before we talked about with drop D, having a lot of chords you have access to in this one position here, but in CG you get, of course, even more, and you have the entire scale right here in this open position up to your 5th fret here. So that's really fun to have there. Not really a lot to say there. There's not really cliches for this tuning because, well, it's not really used by much anyone else. So it's not before we're talking about this. Of course, you can do in this tuning, very fun to do our open one chord to our third, fourth, flat 5, like we talked about before. But of course, if we want to do the rest of the scale, we don't have to go up here. We can, of course. But you don't need to do that, obviously, when you've got it over here. So there you go. Alright, moving on, we're going to go to our next thing here. We're going to talk about using open strings with chords. And the first thing we're going to talk about is a pretty basic shape here. Let's go hang out at the 5th fret here because this is a good spot. And we're going to do what would be a normal power chord shape. So our first finger's on the 5th fret of our thickest string. And then our ring finger and our pinky are on the 7th fret of this G and this D here. And we get that shape. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to play through this and leave this second G string open so we get this. Move that down and you get a really nice sound here. So you can do that shape there. You can also do this shape here where we take our finger on the fret here, 5th fret again, and then we take our second finger and put it on the D string here on the same fret. And then we pick all of that, all 4 of those strings. You get some really cool ones with that. You can also do it this way here. So we take our ring finger on the 7th fret of the C string and then our first finger on the 5th fret of the G, and we get the get that shape. You can invert that. And you can get that one. And then you, of course, can do these 2 here and leave the C string open. And then that's, of course, a few examples. You can also do this shape we did before, but skip a string and leave it open. And there's a bunch of different combinations of open strings and shapes you can do there. So feel free to experiment, find out your own. Have some fun with that. It's a pretty fun trick. Now, next thing we're going to talk about we're going to reference something we talked about in the drop D lesson, which was our 9 chords, which in this tuning now are actually just going to be a full bar here of these 3 strings at the top. So where before in drop D that would be a normal power chord, in this tuning it is an add 9, so you have your power chord at the top with your 9, which now that we've done this gives us access to something else very fun. We can actually build a major chord based on that 9 shape from our drop D lesson, which was, if you remember, you take your finger, bar down these top thickest strings here, so we're at the 5th fret, barring down that C and G, and then we're going to take our ring finger and we're going to put it on the 7th fret. And now before on drop D where we get an add 9, we now just get a major chord. So that's a really neat trick to do there, and there's actually a Soundgarden riff that uses that, and it goes like this. So you can see at the end of that they do this, play this major chord here and slide it. So they use that in one of their songs. And of course you can just keep that moving. And if you want to do a minor, we just swap here to the middle finger, move it a fret back here, so instead of 7th fret, 6th fret with your middle finger. And then you get a minor chord instead there. So that's a fun little thing there. You can build a major chord really easily right there. Alright, now that we've talked about that, we of course got to talk about our friend. What is our friendly neighborhood scale for this tuning? It's of course going to be C minor pentatonic. You know it, and that's going to be up here. Obviously not the lowest strings. You don't want those with that, because you would be doing crazy, having to do crazy stretch over and move around. So you're going to focus on the thinnest 4 strings here, your D, G, B, and E string. And then of course you have your C minor pentatonic here. And then just move that around. This is a pretty fun scale to play. I really like the sound it has. And, you know, riff around in that. It's a really fun scale to play slow, I find. And of course, feel free to jam out all you want over the chords and things we've talked about. I'll write the next thing here, just one last little bit here. We're going to do something a little different. So over to our open position here, we're going to take our 2nd finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the D string here. We're going to take our 1st finger, and we're going to put it on the 1st fret of the B string. We're going to leave this G open. Then we're going to take our 3rd finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the E string. This might get a little bit familiar, especially with these 3 notes here. Recognize that as a C chord. It's not the full C chord because we're not doing this up here, but do this, and then we add our 5th again to the top of this. And what we're going to do is just a little trick here with leaving the G open, and we're going to move this around. And just move it up through the scale, and of course if you want to turn this into a minor, you're going to take your 1st finger, move it to the 1st fret of the D, leave the G open, 2nd finger on the 1st fret of the B, and then pinky on the 3rd fret of the G. And we're leaving that G open because we're exploring the C scale here, and that's what this tuning is great for, is playing it in the C scale, because it's not too far away from an open C tuning. It's not quite all the way there, but you can do similar things that you would be able to do with an open C tuning here, and we're taking advantage of things like open strings, and that of course gets really atmospheric. Now you could try swapping some of those open strings around. Although that's sometimes not quite as effective as this shape here. You can't really do that one either. That's pretty dissonant. But the ones we talked about with our minor here and then our major, leaving that open G, Those are going to be really effective for this tuning. I wonder if you could do this. See, that does sound good too. I'm not sure if you are going to be staying in key. Well, if you do this, yeah, you would still be in key. So you can do this too. We can just take off the finger on the E string here and play this shape that starts off the minor, but just not introduce the fifth to it. And that changes the tone of that. That cleans up really nicely there, not so dissonant there. Alright guys, now that we've talked about that, that's going to actually do it for this lesson here. This one was definitely not as long-winded as the drop D. Of course, we had some of the basics of how to use the power chords and such in that video, which lets us focus on some more specific things with this. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy exploring this tuning. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you get notified when I put a video out. And I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye.